right, let's talk about the hidden wiring inside your brain, the stuff that controls a huge chunk of your daily life. And, spoiler alert, this isn't about willpower, it's about neuroscience.
So, have you ever done this? You promise yourself, nope, not going to eat that cookie, and then you do it anyway. We've all been there. It is so frustrating, right? It feels like a total failure of willpower. But what if I told you it's not about failure at all?
See, the problem isn't you. It's not your willpower. It's your brain's wiring. That battle you're fighting, it's not against your character, it's literally against your own biology. Neuroscience actually shows that this internal conflict is a totally predictable result of how our brains are designed. And understanding that design, that's the key. That's the first step to working with your brain instead of constantly fighting against it.
Okay, so let's get into the science of how your brain saves energy. We're going to pull back the curtain and look at the two main players in this whole story, the ones that are always competing for control inside your head. So, here's the breakdown of that core conflict. Think of it like this. You've got the pilot and the autopilot. The pilot, that's your prefrontal cortex. It's the conscious, deliberate part of you that makes plans. But it is a total gas guzzler, uses a ton of energy. Then you've got the autopilot. That's your basal ganglia. This part is all about automatic, effortless stuff. It's super energy efficient, and if there's one thing your brain loves, it's being efficient.
Get this, 20%. That's how much of your body's total energy your brain burns through. And think about it, your brain is only about 2% of your body weight. It's an incredibly hungry organ. And honestly, this one single fact, it explains pretty much everything about why habits are so darn powerful.
So to save all that precious fuel, your brain has one prime directive: automate everything it can. It takes any action you repeat, any little sequence you do over and over again, and it gets to work turning it into a habit. As soon as it becomes a habit, bam, the mental workload gets handed off from that high-energy pilot to the super-efficient autopilot. So you see, it's not you being lazy, it's your brain running a brilliant survival strategy.
So the big question is, how does the brain actually build these automatic behaviors? Well, some researchers at MIT figured it out. They discovered this really simple but incredibly powerful framework that basically governs every single habit you have. And here it is, the habit loop. This is basically the three-part code for all our behaviors. First, you've got the cue. That's the trigger. It can be anything, a time of day, a place, even an emotion. Let's use an example. The cue is you see your phone on the desk. That cue triggers the routine, which is the action itself. Mindlessly picking it up and scrolling. And finally, you get the reward. That little hit of dopamine, that feeling of distraction. That reward is what tells your brain, hey, do that again? That was good. Let's remember this loop.
And this is the secret sauce. This is how you change a habit. You can't just use brute force to stop the routine. It doesn't work because the cue is still going to be there and your brain is still going to crave that reward. So the real hack is to keep the cue, keep the reward, but consciously swap out the routine in the middle for something better.
All right, so how do we rewire the brain? Because when we talk about changing a routine, it's not just some psychological trick. You are literally, physically, changing the structure of your brain.
You've probably heard this famous saying in neuroscience: neurons that fire together wire together. It's called Hebb's Law, and it's the foundation of all learning and memory. Basically, every time you do something, certain brain cells, neurons, fire in a specific sequence. And the more you repeat that action, the stronger and faster the connection between those neurons gets. They're literally building a dedicated pathway in your brain.
So an old habit is like a paved highway in your brain. Seriously, think of a wide, smooth, multi-lane highway. It's effortless to travel on. The neural pathway is strong, it's insulated, it's super fast. Your brain will always default to this path of least resistance because it's just so easy and energy efficient. But a new habit? That's like trying to forge a brand new path right through a dense forest. It's hard work, right? It requires effort. You've got to hack away at the bushes. It's slow, it's difficult, it takes real concentration. And that is why the first few days or weeks of a new habit feel so incredibly hard. You're not weak. You are literally building a new road in your brain, one step at a time.
But here is the really cool part, the good news. Just like you can build new paths, the old ones can fall apart. There's a term for it: synaptic pruning. It's the brain's use it or lose it principle. When you stop traveling down that old highway, the brain starts to reclaim the space. The connections get weaker. The forest starts to grow back over the pavement. Your brain is basically gardening itself all the time based on what you choose to do.
Okay, so now that we know all this cool science, how do we make it practical? How do we stop fighting our own biology and actually start using it to our advantage? This is where we talk about systems over goals.
There's this quote that just nails it. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And it's so true. See, goals are great for setting a direction, but it's your systems that actually make the progress. If you just rely on motivation or willpower, that's your pilot, you're going to lose, because that energy runs out. A system, though, is something you build into your environment that makes it super easy for your autopilot to do the right thing without even thinking about it.
And building a system is actually pretty simple. You just have to leverage your autopilot instead of fighting it. Want to make a good habit stick? Make the cue visible. You want to start running? Put your shoes right by the door. On the flip side, for bad habits, you make the cue invisible. Want to stop eating junk food? Simple. Don't have it in the house. You're basically designing your environment to automatically trigger the routines you want. You're making that new forest path a little bit easier to walk and making that old highway a little harder to get to.
So what's the takeaway here? The real power to change your life isn't in some huge, grand gesture of willpower you promise for tomorrow. It's in the small, smart system you design for yourself today. So my question for you is this. What is one small system you can build to start paving a new path, starting today?